Welcome everyone to our weekly Soul Changes Lives webinar. My name is Debbie Perez Cockburn. I am the moderator for this weekly discussion. It's always a pleasure to be with you and to see your beautiful faces. And I just wanted to let you know that we are changing up our routine for our weekly webinars. Our new focus for probably about the next 2 months will be looking at our 4-month to health program and how those products are put together as, you know, a package for balance and a package for nutrition or packages for deep cleansing and regular cleansing and why they work in that order. And for that reason, I've asked our president and one of the founders of Soul Naturals, Mr. Greg Halliday, who's with us every week, to explain why certain products work so well, why we look at the use of adaptogenic herbs, and why some things are generally important to our health to start in a certain way. And so, but we will continue our tradition of having a testimonial at the beginning of our webinar. And our testimonial this week comes from my sweet friend, Becky Boyles, who is my Ragin' Cajun fan, is in Louisiana. And so I'm so grateful to have her on board. And then we'll move into our product section, and then I'll just bring it all to a quick summary at the end. And that will be the format that we'll follow from now on. And part of the reason is because I'm in the middle of moving. And so I need to condense our webinars. I am coming to you live today from Utah. I'm in Provo, Utah at the moment. And so I'm very happy to be here with my family. I'm in my sister's home. And we will go ahead and focus on that for the next few months. And hopefully everyone will really understand why Soul puts together the packages the way they do. So Becky, take it away. I'm going to turn the time over to you to share our testimonial today.
Well, I've been on the products for a little over 8 years. So I have many testimonies on different products with different issues I had going on. But today I was going to share, you know, when we get that age where we go through that change of life and we start menopause, you get night sweats and hot flashes. And the one that has worked best for me is taking adaptable, especially taking the adaptable before going to bed, has completely cut them out. And that's the one thing that made a huge difference when it came to those night sweats. I just wanted to share that little tidbit with y'all.
That's a great tip, because I know a lot of women focus on the Maca or the Excel. You know, just knowing that our products are so diverse and can't be pigeonholed into one function, to know that you had extreme success with night sweats with adaptable at bedtime is wonderful. How many do you take, Becky?
I take 2
at bedtime.
Speaking of diverse like that, I have a massage client of mine that it was Cinemate that helped her with her hot flashes because she had a blood sugar issue. That balance, it took away the flashes.
Wow.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Thanks so much, Becky, for sharing that. I really appreciate hearing it. I think I'm one of the fortunate women who went through menopause. I've been through menopause. I've probably started it 18 years ago. I'll be 62 this year. I never had a hot flash in my life, but the one thing that I noticed and struggled with before I came to Soul, and I've been using herbs for, 20 plus years, a great line of products. Most of you know where I worked before. And I started getting heart palpitations when I was going through menopause. Never got the sweats, never got the flashes, but the palpitations and the insomnia was raging. It was horrible. I couldn't get relief. And that was one of the things that immediately disappeared when I started using Soul products. And so I want to go into our topic of discussion today, because when we look at our 4-month program, we know that there's 4 things that really keep us sick, right? And our 4-month program addresses all of those things. And the program that we like to start with, or the package that we start with, is the initial balance package number 3, the one that doesn't have adaptable, but we have the flexibility of adding any products that we want, right, to those packages. And so that is wonderful. And for me, The initial balance, the name says everything, right? Our bodies are always looking for homeostasis. They're always going to be looking for homeostasis. It's not like you hit homeostasis, you won the gold medal, and now your body stops doing. No, it doesn't, right? Because that would not be realistic. Our lives, we do different things in our lives every day, right? We have stressors, we have probably weaknesses that we are prone to because of genetics that we inherit. Right now, there's a pandemic still going around in the world. And so we're exposed to toxins and pathogens on a daily basis. So what does our body try to do? Well, one of the natural reactions that our body has when we're trying to combat something and the body is trying to get back to homeostasis, and this is a healthy immune system response, is inflammation, right? Localized inflammation in the cell or in our organism is used to trap the pathogen and move it out. But what happens? We live in a day and age where there's so much stress, where the food is so bad, where we are dealing with emotional crises on a daily basis. And depending on how we grew up, you know, if you have suffered emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, all of these emotions and issues take their toll on our organs. And so the body is always trying to fight something off. And what happens is that when the immune system breaks down, inflammation goes out of control. And that is just a natural reaction of the immune system. A little bit of inflammation is like stress. It's good for you, but a lot can be very detrimental to your health, physically as well as emotionally. And most people don't understand that connection between mental wellness and body wellness. And you can't treat one without affecting the other. What I love about Soul Naturals products is that all of our products have adaptogenic herbs in every formula, every single formula. We have to do it that way. Why? Because our bodies are combating different things at different times, and it's always looking for homeostasis. It's always going to look for balance. We can't eat one day and say, I'm done eating and never eat again for life. That we wouldn't do that. So we wouldn't do that with our bodies either, right? We have to protect our cells. Our cells form little groups. They form tissues. Tissues form organs. Organs form systems in the body. We are a compendium of all of these things. Then because we are, our body is affected by many things. And what I love about package number 3 is a product that for me personally changed my life physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Why? Because this formula, SolleFlex PI, P stands for pain, I stands for inflammation. SolleFlex PI is going to work on a different level than most pain relievers. And it helps the body have a normal or favorable inflammatory response so that your immune system can work well and your brain can function better. We know that chronic pain can cause depression or mental imbalance. And likewise, if we are struggling with mental imbalances, we can't control our emotions, we have our stress factors that are going and raging out of control, those will take their effect on our organs. Typical case in point, your liver. Your liver is where most of your emotions are housed and seated. And if we don't know how to release them, it causes our liver to have less function. Our liver is important for more than 500 functions in our body. And one of its main functions is to determine what's toxic and what isn't. So we can't overwork our liver. And one of the ways that we can protect it is using this formula. And so for that, I have asked our good friend, Greg Halliday, President, CEO of Soul Naturals, he's one of the original founders, to talk to us about this formula, because I think most people understand that pain is pain, emotional pain, physical pain, pain is pain, and pain can be worked with. You can combat pain, but most people don't understand the difference between inflammation and swelling, or inflammation on a cellular level is very different from swelling. Okay, so swelling can be caused because we have fluid retention, right, in our bodies. or we are feeling bloated because of something we've eaten, that's swelling. That really isn't inflammation. When we talk about inflammation, we're talking about the cells. And so Greg is going to tell us a little bit more about how SolleFlex PI can actually help us with these things. And again, I want to thank Becky for that awesome testimonial. Greg, I'm going to turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Deb, and good afternoon, everybody. I think I'm ready where I can share screen, right? So I do have some slides to share with you from one of the trainings that Dr. Allison gave us years ago. And it's just as true today. It's pretty timeless. But I wanted to share with you, before I do that, this formula, SolleFlex PI, that we're going to talk about, and maybe I should pull it up on screen so you can see it. Okay, there it is. This formula had its roots from a very good friend, someone who spent decades in the lab. And maybe you've seen this book. Does everybody have this book? I'm guessing this group, you might all have this, Nutritional Herbology. But he's one of my favorite people. So he has a brother named Gordon, and sometimes they get confused. Gordon's the one that talks about silver.
Oh, yeah.
That's a different guy. Okay, Gordon's his brother. Mark is the one who spent all the years in the lab mapping out the nutrition of all the herbs. It was actually Mark who did this. And I met him when I first joined the company where Debbie and I both worked for 20 plus years. Really a good person, because what he did is he took the herbs and he said, okay, all these plants have all these nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and other active compounds. So what I'm going to do is map them out, and there's a 5-tiered rating that he would give each plant on each of the vitamins and minerals that were in the plant. It was very low, no, average or normal, high, and very high. So that's how he did it. And this whole book, this whole book. And so I gained, just lists a bunch of herbs and really, really key, wonderful herbs. Mark, back when he was doing this, there was not much. Adaptogens had not really come over here and gotten on the radar. We had some, and we used some. In fact, we even built a product around them years ago. But the real nature of them, sort of the full nature of what they could do, that wasn't something that was studied here. It was studied in the East. I mean, Far East. We're talking Russia. And I would say in China and in India, they clearly had an understanding, because many of their what they would call the superior herbs, that highest category of herbs in China, were adaptogens. There are some herbs that weren't adaptogens that are still superior, because to be superior in Chinese, it had to be safe for everyday use. And that's one of the characteristics of an adaptogen. So Mark had mapped out all these other complementary herbs and a few adaptogens. And when we founded Solle, I just thought I'd share this. I don't know if I've shared this story with you before, but when we founded Solle, I actually met with him very early on, because as we were looking at Solle Vital, we came across the research which had been done locally, showing how much chlorophyll would degrade in just 24 hours when it's put in water. That troubled me, because that was the way I was used to using chlorophyll. And it was something like within 48 hours, it was 8% of the potency that it would be when you blend chlorophyll. It's extracted into a powder, and that's how it's stored, so it's stable. So that is what brought me to Mark, because Mark knew about all that and he had been familiar with those studies. And that was another discussion. That was Solle Vital and adaptable. And I talked with him a little bit about the concept of the company. Once he heard that, he shared with me an inflammation formula that he had been working on over the years, combining kind of for him what would be the best of the best of what was known. And that's what this is. It was pretty close to this formula. 5 of the 7 herbs were herbs that he had chosen, and he and I were on the same page. 2 of them, he had some non-plant sourced anti-inflammatories in there. So it's a couple of animal sourced ones. And I told him that Soul's desire was to bring everything purely from a plant source, easier for the body to use. And that's kind of always been our belief. And we believe that with less, the body can do more when it comes in a plant source. So we work together, and this is the formula that we honed. Mark, just so you know about him, he's just, there's a lot of respect over the years. This isn't something that he was involved in any way, like for pay or royalties or anything. And in fact, when we first got ready to do it, before we had our own manufacturing, et cetera, Mark was part of a very large laboratory, the largest in Utah. It was much larger than the company that I was at. And he offered to actually blend it and do it. But he said he didn't want to charge at all. So he's quite the gentleman. And I only tell you this because this formula is not haphazardly put together. These are herbs that have been studied and work well together. And over the years are really kind of like I would say the brightest stars in the area of inflammation, because the more time passed, the more all of us saw that no matter what imbalance we're talking about in our health, part of that's inflammation. Part of the nature of dealing with it is always going to be inflammation. That's just the way we were created. Our bodies are created. And like Debbie said, it's just keeping it in balance, not letting it become too great where it actually stops things, stops the energy flow, and impedes the natural processes, creates even worse abnormal cells and other issues. Too much inflammation is involved in all of this. In heart health, we could name every single vital organ or vital body system, and it wouldn't take us very long to talk through the typical famous situations of inflammation that have names. So this is why Mark said to me, Dr. Patterson said, this product itself, Greg, if somebody wanted to do some good in the world, they could start a company and just sell this, just teach this and just sell this. And any issue people were confronting would be aided. So it's not that it's meant to be the answer to everything, but it is part of the answer to everything. And that's why this formula is in the key package that Debbie talks about. Honestly, the more I learn about it, and after all these 8 or 9 years that we've been using them, and we can see results, I would never, anything I'm recommending that for someone to work on things, I'm always going to team it up with at least this. It's better if they can even be more balanced and have a complete package. They'll just see results quicker because there's a much broader level of nutrition filling in all the gaps for the body's stressors. But this is kind of like central core to this whole balance idea, because each one of these addresses inflammation in a different way. So reading down them, there's the Chinese skull cap. That is different than the skull cap that we all have, used over the years. It's a much more potent anti-inflammatory, and it's actually fully adaptogenic, whereas normal skull cap is beneficial, but not an adaptogen. Boswellia serrata is frankincense. And we all know there are several versions and varieties of frankincense. There are several species. We have a different species in our balance oil. I think it's, let's see, what's that one? It's Boswellia carteri, I think is the one in the oil. Boswellia serrata is the one here in the capsule. We believe in the variety because they work a little different. We're all a little different, and we don't always know. Science doesn't always know why certain things work in some people better than others. I think it has something to do with Debbie's comments earlier about our genetics and our unique situation and even our location and what stresses we might be under. Different things can work in us. So that's why 7. That's why we didn't just pick our favorite and go, let's just do a really awesome formula, concentrate Chinese skull cap. Well, because it works different than Boswellia serrata, which works different than turmeric, which we have in this formula with a very high level of curcumin. But it's not pulled out. A lot of curcumin now is pulled out. This is still part of turmeric. It's just concentrated to a high level of curcumin, but still within the rest of turmeric. Magnolia bark, myrgum, noni extract, and grape seed. Those round out this formula. And maybe I can just, I think we've probably looked at this before together, but maybe I can just quickly brush through some of the highlights. But think about it with this object of how many of these conditions are inflammatory that scientific studies are reporting improvement with these plants. They really are evidence that these plants manage inflammation, and that sole fact can make a huge difference in every single herbal program and every single, I think, nutritional program. So the name for Chinese skullcap is Wang Qi, and I'm probably not even pronouncing that right. I apologize. But it caught the radar here just a few years ago. In fact, really just like a year before we founded Soll, because we were unaware of this in the prior company. So much so that you have some pharmaceutical companies that have stepped in and patented certain concentrations to keep it away from everybody else. I don't really love that, as you can probably tell. But we have an excellent concentration here. One of the major components is called bicolin. And sometimes people will say, oh, I know what bicolin is. Well, that's just part of Chinese skullcap. The full name is Scutellaria bicolensis, by the way. There it is on this slide. It's a wonderful antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. It does, because it's an adaptogen, it alters metabolism. All adaptogens improve and balance metabolism. And that's why they change so many things in health. Now, Boswellia serrata, I mentioned that is the brand of incense that we have in this formula, frankincense. We know that it's wonderful for joint inflammation, among other areas of inflammation, but it's also got lots of studies about mood balancing. We in particular showed the studies showing our lungs and how much our lungs are involved with health, both like in the moment and over time. One of my favorite quotes is, I'm trying to think if it's Hoffman in his book, An Herbalist, where he talks about just a little decrease in the oxygenation in our blood, being a little bit on the side of oxygen poor, is always related to chronic situations. I mean, it always leads to them. We can't emphasize enough how inflammation and good oxygenation of the lungs can change health, starting today, but going forward, protecting us. And that's why some of these herbs, when people use them, even just for a couple of weeks, a month and a half, you see really high numbers like this one. 70% of the patients see their symptoms go away, these asthmatic symptoms, because they're dealing with inflammation on a really more of a cellular level. It's not a synthetic chemical forcing a different reaction in the body that opens up pathways, and then later when it wears off, the condition that caused the problem still persists. This is changing the condition inside. And the same thing with turmeric and curcumin in particular. I always like to mention the turmeric because now they're studying other substances in turmeric besides just curcumin, and seeing that they're very good for brain repair and neuroprotective. So I don't want to just pull one thing out, no matter how wonderful it is. I want to concentrate it, and that's what we've done with the curcumin and SolleFlex, but leave in the turmeric. So your heart, Debbie kind of talked about kind of like nourishing all the organs together. If we do that, we have a better chance of keeping inflammation in balance. That's all I want to say. If we try to spot check it, it's just harder. And we don't know all the reasons why for that. We know some of them. This is a wonderful digestive. It's anti-inflammatory. That's been widely studied. That's why it's so common in cooking, and it's such a great digestive. And we don't always think of it this way, but the last bullet on this slide, it's very important in colon health. And you think of the problems we have today because I think two things Debbie said, it's just stress levels. The society is so connected, and I wish people wouldn't spread so much negative all the time. And then also, just general pace of life, they've taken a terrible toll on colon health. And that's why it's part of the 4-month program. And I love that it is extra attention to that. Well, we start right out with it in the first month, you know, even though it may not be a cleanse yet. Debbie talks about this sometimes. We're going to get in there and change the nature of the situation so that when we start doing the more cleansing months, we have strength in there and changes that let it happen, let the body release. And that's why I love it. Here's another study about Parkinson's. One of our good friends who we knew for years in the other company, he's dealing with that right now. And there are a number of wonderful adaptogenic herbs that are showing very promising effects. You just have to use enough of it. You have to get a good quality powder and then use enough. Listen to the body and know with an adaptogen, you're okay. Any quantity, the quantity that's necessary can be used. I always put it that way. I would never say any quantity of anything, but the quantity that's necessary, you can keep building up until you see the change that you're looking for. Magnolia bark is the next ingredient. So this is the fourth one of the oldest species, always been a key part of traditional Chinese medicine. And it has these wonderful polyphenols that change people's ability to get restful sleep, that change our ability to manage stress in a more productive way, just, you know, not quite so high and low. One of them that they studied is this one right here, hinokiol. I'm not even sure I'm saying that right. You can see it written there. And that's one that they've studied a lot with bone health. So you know it's going to be related to kidney health and bone health. And magnolia bark, to me, underappreciated because it's been around so long. And it may not be the new hotness, but it is a huge part of this formula. And one of the main reasons I think that SolleFlex PI helps people heal, because inflammation's put in check, but it also has healing compounds in it. Myrgum is another one of those, speaking of those healing compounds. Inflammation and better circulation, that's how we heal, and that's how we manage infection and inflammation and inflammation. So lots of qualities that have been studied. And I just realized I didn't include all of them on here. I added some yesterday, Debbie. That's why you probably saw a couple of extra points. You're going, oh, I hadn't seen that one on there. I don't know if you remember the one that I added. Darn, I wanted to share that today. But injury healing, think of it this way. When there are significant imbalances in health, so that we got a diagnosis, you know, so they put a name to it. In my mind, I always look at that like an injury somewhere. So when I hear injury healing, I don't just think of some, like, you know, cut, burn, scrape, break. I'm thinking of a situation that got out of hand, and then the body has to rebuild and fix it. That's to me how I view Myrgum, and that's how I view this whole formula. It cannot happen. It cannot happen unless the inflammation is brought down to a reasonable level. And that's why we added this. When people started to pay attention to noni and it became this big topic out in the natural health community, there were lots of things people shared about what it is. Noni could well be an adaptogen. It's that broad. I mean, there's blood sugar. It just hasn't been studied enough to be, you know, listed that way. But it could well be, in my personal opinion, is that it probably is, because I think it's also that safe for daily use, et cetera. And I mean, it enhances the immune system. So very loaded with vitamins and minerals. But I would say the biggest thing that just struck the whole industry is how well noni helps us manage inflammation. So when we added it to this formula, you can see on that last point, this is a 5 times concentrate. So it's not just the fruit powder. It's actually 5 times concentrated. So that with a small amount in this capsule, you're actually getting a full amount of what you would if you're just going to take a noni supplement. I noticed a huge difference with my knees because I would run. I was talked into, at a little later age in life, starting to run distance running because a friend talked me into it. Noticed a big difference when I started to add noni. So, and then the last one is another one that is way undervalued, probably not by those listening today, but I would just say in general. It is so game changing that you see natural companies creating supplements that are synthetic versions of resveratrol, where they just pull it out. instead of leaving it in the plant compound. But I mean, that's how important these different active components are, how much they change how our body manages inflammation, what our heart health is like, brain clarity, focus, memory, protecting neural cells. Grapeseed extract to me is one of the very greatest, like so many of these wonderful foods, you know, that are parts of common foods that we don't realize how good they are. When you get this powder, it can make a huge difference if that's just part of daily nutrition. Small amount every day is the key to this. So anyway, those are that's a little quick run through on why we had the ingredients. I do look at SolleFlex PI differently than I did 9 years ago, a little bit, because I think 9 years ago, we noticed how quickly it would lower people's pain levels. Some of those things are hard to ignore because you're just thinking, wow, I can do 2 of these in the morning.
Mhm.
And when we founded Soul, I was 49. I was 40, let's see, 64. I'm trying to do my math here. 2012, I'm 48. Okay, that was old enough where I just always kind of had some amount of pain just because I was active enough,
Right.
younger years, played basketball, probably hurt some things. And I noticed I could do two SolleFlex PI in the morning, and I felt like I did in my early 30s. I didn't have pain unless I overdid it, but normal. Okay, so that's what changed. I looked at it as a pain. Now I more look at it as this enabler to manage inflammation so that all the other stuff can heal. That's even though the pain management's still there. It's still wonderful. I mean, you got to figure out the quantity that works for you. Start with 1 and go up from there.
Right. I love that you always talk about therapeutic doses versus a daily maintenance dose of the product. And certainly the label mentions a daily maintenance dosage, not a therapeutic dose.
Right.
What I love about this is that most people don't realize that they're dealing with pain on a certain level until they see something catastrophic, like you say, that happens that slows you down. When I think of diseases like Parkinson's and other central nervous system diseases, and we can name them all, right? The one thing always comes to mind is, I don't know if you remember, Greg, there was a movie about 25 years ago. It was pretty popular. It was called Lorenzo's Oil. And it's based on what grapeseed extract does. And they actually put it, it was in an oil form, and they used it for this child who had been suffering something like epilepsy, but it had taken away his power of speech and his power of movement. And it just caused the little boy to withdraw, even though we knew that there was probably a lot of brain function he couldn't articulate anymore. And when I think of resveratrol on the market today and what we have in SolleFlex PI, that's why I'm a total agreement with you that grapeseed extract is very underappreciated or undervalued in our society, Western Hemisphere. I think European, they know more because they use the herbal pharmacopoeia better than we do, right? But I love the variety. And like you said, I'm glad that there's 7 great sources that will help the body fight inflammation and fight pain, just because we're all very different. And our body reacts to things differently. I love that it is part of package number 2 or package number 3, where we can help combat inflammation. If you can remember anything from today, remember to tell your customers, or remember to tell yourself, don't wait until you feel the pain. We can balance our bodies very easily using SolleFlex PI. And that's why it is part of those 2 packages. Yes, Greg.
Yeah, and I need to add one quick thing too, because we added these slides later on, but I didn't have them on there today. Dr. Allison shared some really interesting research, because you just made me think of this with don't wait till you feel the pain. Depression and a more severe anxiety, they all have pain with them. And
Right.
you made me think of it because we're thinking of how we feel and not the pain we feel,
Right.
because how we feel is so hard.
Right.
And she showed studies that show when you bring inflammation down, so like you bring down you bring down your inflammation, then suddenly you feel better, your depression alleviates. She showed several studies that if we could just manage inflammation, so many types of depression go away, just go away or become very minor. And the markers always go down when mood goes up. So that's the other thing I didn't talk about. And that's the other reason why it's in that first package, right, Deb, is because you're trying to also reset our emotions and our mood to be in a better place to heal.
Yeah, and you can't fix one without dealing with the other. I mean, they go together, like you said. Most people who suffer from anxiety or severe anxiety or clinical depression pain is pain, Greg. That's why the research is there. Emotional pain is just as valid as physical pain. It's pain, and it causes inflammation in your body. So you know that the emotional pain is a form or a more, I always think of it as a more magnified form of physical pain. We just can't articulate it. We don't know where it's coming from, but pain is pain, be it emotional or physical. Pain is pain. And if we can manage the inflammation, then we relieve the pain.
Right.
Relieve the pain that's here or in our body system. So I love it. I am so grateful for that explanation today. I know we've looked at SolleFlex before. I don't think we've ever looked at it this closely, and to know why it's part of package number 2 or number 3 and why it's important to start with this product to start to bring balance to our body. That's why it's in the package. That's why it's part of the primary or initial balance, so that we can be on the road to better healing. I always say an ounce of prevention is worth way more than a pound of what? How does it say? An ounce of prevention is worth more
Pound
than
of
a pound of
cure.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so when I look at people and they say, well, how can that help me? How can that help? What have you got to lose? What have you got to lose except for the pain and the inflammation that is aggravating everything else in your life? So it's an amazing product. I thank you for that great explanation. And if you haven't gone on YouTube to listen to any of Dr. Allison's month of May conversations that she's had for mental health, I think you'll really pick up on what we were talking about today on how to manage certain amounts of pain in the body that affect our brains and affect the way that we function, because we have a lot of stressors. Yes, Becky.
I just want to share another testimony that y'all know I had knee surgery, but I don't do pain medicine, and I use SolleFlex PI to get me through those days of a lot of pain and inflammation, and that was a savior too.
That's awesome, Becky. How many did you use? I think you shared that once. How many did you use and how often?
I was doing therapeutic doses, doing a couple every couple of hours.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I know it's worked for Donna. Donna just recently had some knee replacement surgery. Most of you know that at age 42, my doctor said that my knees looked like the knees of a 92-year-old, and he wanted me to have knee replacement back then. It's not like a badge of honor I wear, but I have found great relief in these products, and I'm still resisting the total knee replacement. But you know also that I've had several procedures done as well. And when I had my Achilles tendon rupture, the first thing the doctor noticed, because of what we were taking and what we were using at home with Solle, my doctor was really surprised that when he took the soft cast off, there was no inflammation and very little bruising. There was no swelling in my ankle when you looked at that scar from my Achilles. So again, powerful testimonies you've heard and you will continue to hear in our webinars every week. Again, thank you, Becky, for being so forthcoming and sharing. I know it's hard for people to share, but these testimonials are gold. And I love that SolleFlex PI really, to me, reminds me of the Three Kings gifts to the Savior, because curcumin, turmeric, those colors are gold, and it's got frankincense and myrrh in there. And when you think about the importance of those 3 gifts and what they meant spiritually as well, I think really we're sitting on a gold mine. This product is so amazing to me. Greg, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope to see you at the office on Friday.
Oh yeah, I'll see you then.
Thanks everybody.
Everybody.
See you next week.
Send us your rain.
We will do it.